Everybody, welcome back to the Digital Health Entrepreneurship Show. My name is Seth Silvers, and I'm here with Laurence, Girard, and Lee. And today we are going to talk about an amazing product that Fruit Street Health has been building rapidly over the last couple weeks, and now is getting out in front of tens of thousands of people. So before I say too much, Laurence, tell the listeners, what is CovidMD and how are you guys working to get it out in front of the people that need it the most?
CovidMD is a national telemedicine service where the public can take a risk assessment in terms of their exposure and mortality risk for COVID-19. So it asks them questions like their age, medical conditions, symptoms, travel history, are you a first responder? And then they would be able to video chat with a doctor by either paying with a credit card, or in the next few days, we will have the ability for Medicare beneficiaries to use their Medicare Part B to enter their Medicare ID number. And they would video chat with a doctor who would then advise them on what they should do, whether that's going to the emergency room or avoiding an unnecessary emergency room visit. That's kind of version 1.0 of the product, but we hope to integrate testing and other components soon, like e-prescribe and that kind of thing.
It seems really intense. Do you have any anecdotes for doing all the marketing that relates to it? You must be doing a lot of marketing at the moment, like jumping on all the socials and so forth. What sort of tools are you using? What sort of approaches are you taking?
Yeah, I think it's an unprecedented time for telehealth in the sense that Medicare is paying for this at the patient's home. So you can advertise to Medicare beneficiaries and they can take out their Medicare ID number and enter it into the platform and just go ahead and get that reimbursed by Medicare. And so we are focusing on advertising to that 65 plus demographic to help them with their medical needs. And, there's so many different angles to the marketing. I mean, we're using social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram. We're going to be using YouTube, Hulu, but even doing like traditional television advertising that might resonate more with the older demographic. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs get frustrated too fast with digital advertising. If they don't, instantly see a customer sign up, they just say, "Oh, it's not working." But it's really more about taking a scientific approach to things and doing experimentation and testing, just like you would in a clinical trial. So it's really the approach we take. It's this culture of experimentation.
There was one platform in there that was really exciting to me. Like, of course, everyone's advertising on Facebook and a few others like that. And maybe they're stepping up their game and doing LinkedIn. But did you say Hulu?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a new form of television. I mean, you can buy Hulu ads. It's just, people watch CNN on Hulu now, right? So it's the same thing as buying TV ads, essentially.
And you mentioned something that I don't want to skip over. You started talking about science while talking about advertising. So can we zoom out and talk about are you taking the scientific method and actually integrating that into advertising and marketing? And if so, how in the world does that work?
Is the reason why someone's signing up versus the price of a product versus the color of a button versus maybe there's a button that doesn't even work. And so the reason why no one's signing up is because of that. I mean, in fact, when we launched kind of the very quick version of CovidMD, the first few hours of advertising, we're like, well, what's going on here? And then we realized that on the mobile browser on Safari, you can't click the finish button, right? And so we obviously fixed it very quickly, right? And done is better than perfect at this point because we're moving fast. Because if we didn't move fast, we would never release a product that helps anybody. But it's really about statistical significance instead of you and I having an argument in our company about, well, I think it should be this way and you think it should be that way. And we could kill each other. We could get so mad. We could scream. You could throw your coffee at me. Instead of doing that, I just have a very calm reaction whenever we're having that debate, which is, let's test it and let's see what happens, right? Nobody's right or wrong. It's about hypothesis generation and then testing. And you can't just spend, $100 on Facebook ads. You have to use tools like Optimizely, which is an A/B testing platform where it will literally divert, let's say 20% of your traffic to screen A, 20% to screen B, 20% to screen C, D, and E. And it will tell you when you reach statistical significance, with that p-value less than 5, right? Or whatever it is, just like a clinical trial would be. So, if you had one person click on a Facebook ad and it was the first person, right? And they signed up and paid, well, you have 100% conversion rate. Are you going to assume that you're going to have 100% conversion rate for the next 1,000? Obviously not, right? And so that's why before you draw a conclusion, you have to reach statistical significance.
So is there a bit of a split between like fact-based messaging that you guys do, or motion-based messaging? Is it as superficial as that, or simple as that? I should say. It's not superficial. Do you do that sort of different messaging techniques?
Yeah, right now I think it's a little bit more fact-based, but I really want us to produce a very high-quality emotional commercial. I want to show you one now quickly. So this is a media firm we're considering engaging with to complement what our existing firm is doing.
Home, a word that today takes on a whole new meaning. In these troubled times, home can be so much more than a physical space. Home is our workplace, our daycare, our school, our gym. But above all things, home is a shelter, a place where we can retreat to, where we are protected, shielded, secure from the outside world. A place where we can be our realest selves. And while these days it can be difficult to feel confined, remember what home is. A sanctuary, a haven, a place where we will weather a storm that, like many others, also shall pass.
Oh, Laurence, I was a bit surprised there. I expected to see a Fruit Street or CovidMD thing. So walk us through that. That's an advertising company that created that, and you're considering employing them to do CovidMD or something? What's up?
Yeah, that's right. We are going to do that. But yeah, I mean, that's so much more emotional. I mean, that makes you not only want to, sign up for the product, but like it makes you want to like work for them, right?
Yeah.
So I think like we should have that level of emotion, and I think video advertisements are more effective than just having a static text ad. I mean, just looking at a web page with some text really like draw you emotionally to something. I mean, when people want to talk to a doctor, they want safety, they want someone that knows what they're doing and that kind of thing. And I think that video advertisements and maybe even television might carry the day here. But yeah, I mean, it's just about emotion, really. At the end of the day, I mean, why do you buy any product? It's emotion. It's not because you saw like a Google AdWords ad. I mean, like, sure, like, yeah, if you're like, oh, I want Nike sneakers, yeah, sure, you might click on the ad, but you're not buying the sneakers because you saw a Google AdWords advertisement.
So as the CEO, are you really interested in like the cost per customer acquisition? Because like I'm quite fascinated in the fact that a digital entrepreneur could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on LinkedIn to find investors. And if they get a huge investor that invests, say, $500,000, all of their advertised spend on LinkedIn would be justified by that, a lot of money. But with customers for like CovidMD, it's little smaller amounts of money. As a CEO, are you thinking a lot about the customer acquisition cost?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately you do. You have to track your conversion funnel. So things like, what's my cost per click? So we were at 40 cents, for example, for somebody to click on a Facebook ad. How many people take this risk assessment? How many people pay? How many people talk to a doctor? And then ultimately other things like how satisfied are they with the service and that kind of thing. So ultimately you do, but initially those are not going to be numbers anybody likes initially, right? Your baseline is always going to be very poor, like abysmal. Like you might spend 10 grand and sign nobody up. But then you take a step back and say, okay, we have some initial data and that's our baseline. And then we use tools like Optimizely to improve it, right? So maybe we reduce the price. Maybe we remove the risk assessment and just connect people to a doctor immediately. And that's a quantitative approach. But then there's qualitative tools like Full Story where you can actually watch a user exactly where their mouse is on web or mobile, scrolling through the page, right? And you can track things like angry clicks. So clicking like multiple times in rage, or dead clicks where they click on something that's not clickable, right? And that allows you to qualitatively watch a user session as if you were sitting next to them in their home. But it's not to be evil. It's to help the user have less frustration, right?
I've never heard of that. That's fascinating. So this is not just a marketing project where some agency pays people to click around something. You're talking about actual users on a social media platform.
Yeah, I mean, within a week, right? We're gonna have, we will literally have tens of thousands of recorded user sessions, right? And you can search in Full Story, and you can search for, all the dead clicks. You can search for all the rage clicks, right? You can search for. And it will like show these little smiley faces of like this user was really happy because they didn't have any problems, and this one was really upset. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of, I mean, if you look at that data, how could you not figure out what works eventually, right? Unless you're selling like, I don't know, sandpaper or something nobody wants to buy, but right?
I'd love to ask because I mean, there's all of this data, all of these interesting and fascinating tools, but I know why because my background's in marketing. But like for our listeners of this show, like why do you have to use all of these fancy tools to figure out how to get this product in front of people? Why are all these tools necessary, and what's kind of the end goal of having all these different layers of data?
Well, I mean, it's just the more information you have, qualitative and quantitative, the more you're going to be able to generate new hypotheses and then test them, right? So it's about spend some money on advertising, collect some data, generate a new hypothesis, and test again. It's a feedback loop. There's a book. What's the book called? So there's a firm we hired called Chrometrics. Yeah, we'll put in the links below. Anyway, the whole point is that like having this culture of hypothesis generation and experimentation. I mean, some big companies run multivariable tests where, I mean, they're launching new tests every day. They're doing millions of tests, and it's not even a human designing it. It's just like, I mean, at a high level, it is a human designing it, but it's just multivariable tests. I mean, sometimes changing the text on a button can be the reason why someone signs up.
How is this different from when you first launched Fruit Street, and when talk to us a little bit about how digital advertising and digital marketing has changed since your first launch of Fruit Street and first launch of CovidMD?
Well, some of these products have existed, like Optimizely cost like 50 grand a year. So like, you're not going to make that your first expense as a startup, but when you can afford it, you do it. Right. So I think part of it's just budget. I don't know if Full Story existed back then, but that's I think Google Ventures backed company. But, I think that, you also have to think about things like retargeting. So, oh, great, nobody signed up. Well, not really, because I mean, sure, like if you run into a situation where nobody signed up, it's not about that they clicked the ad and they paid. It's about, well, now their browser's cookied, and now you are, targeting them again when they go on Google and they go on Facebook and they go on LinkedIn, right? And then you're doing things like they gave you their email, right? Because they were interested in what you're doing, and you use something like a Salesforce Marketing Cloud or Pardot to take them through these journeys of like emails, right? So it'd be like, oh, we noticed you were interested in signing up for CovidMD. Let us tell you a little more about the service, and you send them a few emails over a week so they get to know you a little more, right? And so it's not about like, you advertise to them and they signed up. You're building a brand. You're interacting with them maybe 5 to 10 times before they pay you. Now with investors, it's completely different, right? Because they see an ad, they talk to you, they invest, but you're building brand there too, right? But with consumers, I think it's more like a 5 to 10 time interaction before they would maybe pay.
So does that mean that like if you're putting out an ad and somebody sees CovidMD and they go the other way, like are you getting frustrated? Because I know a lot of people that are new to advertising or new to product launches, they get their product in front of somebody once and the person doesn't engage and they're like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with this? They're not understanding that piece where it takes 5 to 10 touch points. So are you guys seeing like, are you paying more attention or putting more weight on the retargeting side of ads than like the initial response?
Not necessarily. I think it's more about, I think what inexperienced entrepreneurs do with digital advertising is they judge their success by how many customers sign up. So I actually would expect that. I think we've spent like $4,000 on ads and like a few people sign up, right? And like you might think that's horrible, right? Because the service costs $79. But first of all, you're building a brand with those people that didn't sign up, right? You can do things like on Facebook. You can say, I only want to advertise to people that have already clicked on a CovidMD ad before, or that have watched 15 seconds of our video instead of 7 seconds, right? But it's more about how much money do I have to spend in order to learn as fast as possible. So for example, that first issue we had where there was a few hours where like a button wasn't working. Well, you don't have to spend $100,000 in a single day to find out a button's not working. You start out and you say, okay, we're going to spend $1,000 a day. And then it's like, okay, well now we're seeing that, 25% of people that clicked on the ad, they take the risk assessment and like 3 of them paid. Like, okay, like it's working to the point where let's up it to $5,000 a day, right? And then you get to the point where it's like, okay, now we have a $500 customer acquisition cost instead of $1,000. So now it's up into, 20 grand a day, right? So you don't want to just launch a new product and spend $100,000 overnight, because you can get a lot of learning just by having, say you spend $2,500 a day at 50 cents a click. 5,000 people interacting with that every day. That's 5,000 full story user sessions that you can watch. So you don't need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars from the first day. You ramp it up over time. And then when you hit that success of wow, we have a $10 customer acquisition cost, sure, spend millions, right? But you don't have to do that immediately.
Is there any sort of insights into the split between advertising and public relations that you can talk about? So, for instance, I know you're working with a couple of PR firms. Does that augment what you're doing, on Facebook and LinkedIn and so forth, or is it completely different?
Yeah, sure. Look, if you have a celebrity doctor talk about your product on national television, a lot of people are going to sign up, right? But you don't have any guarantee with that with public relations, right? It's not Facebook, you pay them, they put the ads out, right? And it's this machine. So I personally lean more towards social media, because it's kind of an unlimited universe, right? You can advertise to every American basically through social media. Whereas PR, it's important, right? But it's not necessarily as repeatable, right? Sure, you got one big story, right? But it's not always as repeatable as social media. And our PR firm will disagree with me, I'm sure. But that's been my experience. The point is I've heard stories of startups where they do get that one PR story where it just changes their business, right? They're on the cover of whatever New York Times, whatever, right? And it's just they get $10 million of sales in a month, right? And that article was the reason why they raised $50 million of venture capital funding or whatever. Of course that happens, right? But that's more of you're going for a home run, right? Whereas social media, it's this culture of very small experiments, small. Oh, wow, we just figured that thing out that gives us a really low customer acquisition cost. So now we can invest millions in that kind of advertising. So that's kind of, I don't know how I view it. But of course, PR builds a brand, and everything builds a brand in the long term. But, social media advertising can be very powerful if you get it right, but very expensive if you get it wrong.
Yeah.
You're not going to spend money indefinitely to lose money on social media advertising. So it can be expensive, which is why doing these experiments is important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fascinating. And we'll have to check back in over the coming weeks on this show with how the launch is going and what you're learning and stuff, because you guys are just a few days in. And like you said, I loved what you said of how much do I have to spend to learn as fast as possible. So I'm sure that 7 days from now, you're going to have learned a whole ton from all the data you're gathering and stuff. So this is exciting stuff, Laurence. Thanks so much for sharing a little bit about how you're getting CovidMD out in front of people. And it'll be fun to check back in with this in a couple of days.
Thanks, Laurence.
Yeah. And hopefully we have more customers by then.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
Sounds good. Thank you.